Well, here we are. Number one. Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Australian Fitness Podcast, Installment 1, Episode 1. Craig Anthony Harper here with one of my friends, but not just a friend, but a pioneer, an innovator, a leader, a thought leader, a business guru. He probably wouldn't say that, but I will. Tony Doherty in the fitness industry, of course. Hi, brother.
Hello, how are you, mate?
I'm very good. Hey, thanks for driving an hour and a quarter in the fucking traffic. He's already bitching like a whiny little bitch because it took him a long time to get here.
Actually, I just felt bad because I hate being late. I pride myself on being punctual, and I was kicking myself that I didn't leave even 15 minutes earlier. But thanks for having me on as your first guest. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I think most people keep the best for last, so you just get the shit ones out of the road.
No,
early,
not at all, mate. I wanted somebody who's done a lot and somebody who's got something to say, somebody who doesn't hold back, but also somebody who has a lot to teach and a lot to offer anyone who's in or around the fitness space. So give us the update. So right now, 2016, and we'll work back and forwards. So 6 gyms as we speak.
Yes.
And where are they?
So headquarters is in Brunswick. That was the original, which has been open 24 hours now for 18 years. I started in Brunswick in 94 and then went 24 hours into the bigger building in 98. So it's been open 18 years, 24 hours a day. Then we've got the one in the city, which is quite an iconic location in Flinders Street, the old railway vaults. Dandenong, Frankston, Campbellfield, and our country one in Bendigo. So 6 altogether. How's
Bendigo go? That's relatively new.
That and Frankston are both about 2-3 years old.
Yep.
And we relocated the Bendigo one from a little warehouse to the main street. So we're right across the road from the McDonald's that's been there for, which is an iconic location right by the fountain, and fantastic location, a beautiful old building. It's one of my favourite buildings out of all the buildings that I rent. And Danny up there's doing a great job. He's a real people's person, and it's become like a real family joint to go with a hardcore sort of edge.
So let's go back to the start of your kind of career in this space. You started lifting weights when you're in your early teens, and you started taking an interest, or more than an interest, you had a fascination with muscle and with training. And I remember, I think hearing you say that your dad showed you a picture in a magazine.
No, what it was, I was watching TV with him, and Arnold came on. I think it was the Mike Walsh show, or one of those kind of variety shows.
Yeah.
And I saw this guy, and just said to Dad, what's that? And he didn't have much interest in me. He goes, well, that's a bodybuilder. I'm like, what's that in his arms? He said, they're veins. I'm like, wow. I said, how do you get to look like that? And he said, well, you got to lose a little bit weight. You're a bit chubby. Maybe get along to the gym, but educate yourself. Find out how to do it and work it out. And I remember saying to him, can everybody look like that? And he said, yeah, I guess if they applied themselves, they could. And my next question was, well, why doesn't everyone look like that? If you can look like this kind of specimen, why would you look like a slug? And I just had this light bulb moment, I guess you'd say, of that's what I want to do with my life. And he was pimping a book called Arnold, The Education of a Bodybuilder. It was like his first big book about that. And I said to Mum and Dad later on that night, I said, that's all I want for Christmas or my birthday, whatever was coming up.
Yep.
And cut me out of the will. I don't want anything else.
Really?
I don't want any other gifts. I don't want any other income. I've seen this guy that's changed my world. I'm going to read his book. And after reading his book, I understood it wasn't just the muscles that fascinated me, it was the charisma of the man. To see someone that was so confident, who had an accent and obviously difficulty, but he was taking on the world and travelling and selling this book. And I thought, wow, I want to be a bodybuilder, a promoter, and a gym owner.
Wow.
And I was, 14, and that defined my life. And I remember saying to Dad, that money you saved up for me to go to university, give it to the other kids. I don't want nothing to do with it. I'm out of here. I just want to get a job, figure out how I'm going to do it, and do it. And I've worked for myself ever since.
So 14, how old are you now? 50? 51?
51, yeah.
51, 14. So what's that, 37 years. So I'm 2 years older than you, which is disappointing. Anyway, so 37 years. When did you set up your first gym? Or when did you start working in a gym? When was your first job in a gym?
Okay, so I started working out almost immediately, just going along to the gym after school and that sort of thing. And I think about a year later, I started to get more serious about it, and I joined the local YMCA. And it was 1980, I remember, because the Olympics had been on. And I went there with my best mate, and I'm like, we should do those Olympic lifts. Yeah, you go first. So I put a plate on each end of the bar. So I reckon I could do this. And I cleaned the weight up, but I had no formal instruction. And I hadn't noticed that they actually did a split thing with their legs and put one leg back to balance themselves. So I flipped it up to my chest, easy. I said, look at that, mate. And I pushed it up above my head and fell over backwards and absolutely obliterated both bones in both wrists, broke them clean in half.
Ouch.
And that was my first real test, I guess, because... Yeah, when I went to the doctor and my arms went back and one of them had a bone, I think it was this one, had a bone sticking out of it. And the doctor said, well, find something else to do because you're never going to lift weights again. I said, pardon? He said, you'll never lift weights again. I said, well, surely there's got to be a way. And of course there was no physios or rehab or anything else. He said, no, just find something else to do. And I think it was at that stage that I realised that if somebody tells me I can't do something, they better be really sure about it because I'm probably going to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
And so that became a real turning point. And then I...
How old were you then? 14?
15.
15. And so they obviously put
15.
both arms in casts?
Both arms in casts from here to here, which, when you're a boy going through puberty and you can't...
Wow, limits you
bathe
doing a
yourself.
few things.
Yeah, including having to get your mum to come and wash your hair and putting plastic bags over your arms to go to the toilet and all this kind of horrible stuff. Anyway, it kind of made me realise I really wanted to do it, but I wasn't ready. So I hit the road for a couple of years and I left school at 16.
Yeah.
Much to my parents' dismay, I said, I don't need a formal education. I don't need anything else. I'm going to go pick grapes. So I went up to Mildura.
Perfect plan.
With a mate and picked grapes, and we bought an old shitbox and we drove without licences in a $300 car from Adelaide to Cairns because we heard that they were hiring on prawn trawlers. So that became like my boyhood, if you like, of just getting out of there and finding myself. And I went on a prawn trawler. And I had zero money. In fact, we were living in a tent in a caravan park and eating chips in bread because we couldn't even afford food. And I remember going from boat to boat and have you got any work? No. Have you got any experience? No. And finally this guy said, I just had a deckhand walk out on me. He said, I'm leaving 5 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Can you be here? I said, yeah. He said, we're going to be out for 6 weeks. I said, that's just what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
The good thing is, we'll give you so much money, but you won't get to spend any money because the food's on the boat. Everything you need, you come back cashed up. I said, this is just what I need.
Yeah.
So I went out.
Was there a bit of trepidation with that? Like you're 16. Were you 16?
Yeah.
And you're getting onto it. I'm pretty sure he was an old crusty, tough as nails.
Yeah,
and you're going fucking 6 weeks on a boat with blokes I don't know.
Yeah, and they were all these, wild men, bikers and tattooed men and all this sort of stuff. And I remember just thinking, this is what I want. I need to be around, some of these blokes now just to grow me up.
I would have been shitting myself at 16.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I just really look forward to doing it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do it. So, so of course I went out and got as pissed as I could. And
Perfect.
The guy I still remember he spotted me $50. I said, mate, if you trust me, can you give me $50? I need to get some supplies, some deodorant, a toothbrush and that kind of thing. He said, nothing. And of course I spent $5 on the toilet.
The supplies.
$45 on grog. And of course I got so pissed that I was seasick for the first 3 days and very, very seasick. And anyway, came back and did that. And I still remember being out there and these guys, once they got to know me and sort of started mentoring me a bit, and they're like, you're not cut out for this. You've got greater things to do, haven't you? I said, yeah, I'm going to be a gym owner and a bodybuilder and a promoter. And they're like, look at you. You're fat. You've got long hair. You don't look like a bodybuilder. What do you mean? And I said, this is what I'm going to do. And they laughed at me. And I still remember they were throwing fish and octopuses at me and saying, hey, gym boy, and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Once again, told me I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, okay, that's just what I needed. Now I really want to do it. So after a year or so on the road, I made my way home and tried to get a job in the gym. The guy that had been at the first gym I joined had opened his own gym, which was Plaza Fitness Centre. Anyway, long story short, I couldn't get a job there, and he kept saying, no, you need to lose a bit of weight, you need to tone up. And I thought, well, I want to start my bodybuilding, so I started training for my first show and got a bit lean. Then he said, you need to be qualified, so I went and did the first ever fitness leaders course with a guy called Dr. Terry Seedsman at Footscray Institute. And it was the first ever time they'd had a course for fitness instructors.
So the first kind of accreditation process.
Yeah,
wow.
very first
What
one.
year was that, Tony?
That would have been about 1981.
Wow.
Around 80, 81, 82. Definitely around there.
Early 80s. Yeah.
Very, very early 80s. So I went and did that, and I had to hitchhike and get trains and buses, anything to get to Melbourne because I was still in Bendigo to do this course. Anyway, I got through it and said, how about a job now? He said, no, it's not the time's right. You got to get a bit fitter. And it was always an excuse why I couldn't get a job. So one day, and I talk about this in my seminars, but one day I said to him, you know what, your toilet's always filthy and the shower's always filthy. And I had this thing that I've always had and I've still got, is don't worry about the money. Don't ever focus on what's in it for me. And I have this saying, instead of putting your hand out, put your hand up. So I went back to him and I said, what about if I was to clean your toilet voluntarily for the next 3 months? He said, who does that? I said, I do. I'm brilliant at it. I said, they're filthy. I said, the guy that does them obviously doesn't care, and I'd like an opportunity to show you that I can work. And he said, sure. So next morning, I went and bought a mop and a bucket and a scrubbing brush or whatever I needed, and domestos and all that sort of thing, and I scrubbed, and I put new silicone around the bottom of the showers and painted up the scuffed marks on the lockers and tidied up and replaced the toilets. It just did everything, and they were immaculate. And people started saying to him, gee, those toilets are always clean. Wow. And he took note of that, and he goes, well, you really do work hard. I said, I'm happy to. I've got nothing else to do. And I was just doing part-time jobs and so just waiting for this opportunity in the gym. And then finally he said, so-and-so walked out and he's left me stuck. He said, you can start work on Monday. This is on a Thursday. I said, finally, I got my job. He goes, full-time job. I'm like, wow, happy days. Awesome. Then he said, but the catch is, he was doing 20 aerobic classes a week, and you have to be an aerobics instructor if you want that job. I said, no, so I'm a bodybuilder. Of course, training for my first show, little meathead. And he said, I thought you wanted to work in the gym. I said, okay, how am I going to do that? He goes, figure it out. You need a cassette tape with 10 tracks or 12 tracks or whatever it was. Yeah. And your first class is Monday night at 6 o'clock.
Awesome.
And I didn't know anything about aerobics class apart from having a bit of a perv as a 17 or 18-year-old young man. That's all I knew. I just did nothing. I wasn't interested. So I still remember I got a blank poster and a Sharpie, a texter, and I named the first exercise step forwards and the second exercise step backs and the third one step sideways. And I just went through and figured out all these things, and I wrote them in order.
Yeah.
And I recorded these songs over the weekend. I practiced, and I went in before the class, and I stuck the sheet down on the stage so no one could see it.
Right.
And I probably wondered why I looked down the whole time, because I was reading my cheat sheet, which was an A2 poster with about 60 different exercises. And I did that, and got through, and got good at it, and hated every minute of it. But when I say hate, I learned to enjoy it, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. But I wanted that job so bad that I would have done anything.
That's amazing.
Anything. And I think that's where a lot of younger people probably get a little bit confused, that they've got their hand out saying, what's in it for me? And then they apply conditions to it. So I'll do that, but I won't do that.
Do you think that and we'll come back to where you were, but do you think that, excuse me, in 2016, that people coming into the industry have a kind of a distorted perception of what it takes to succeed? My experience and observation is that there are a percentage that are like you in that they're hungry, they'll do whatever it takes, they want to learn, they'll get uncomfortable, they realise there's a price to pay. And then there seems to be a group that kind of have a mentality almost of entitlement. Well, I've done this 8-week course, so you're going to pay me $80 an hour or $100 an hour, or I won't pack up weights, or I won't empty bins, or I won't mop up if something happens. It's like, I'm only here to be an instructor. Yeah, I'm not filling up the water bottle. I'm not washing those cups. I'm not. Yeah. What do you say to those people, or do you? So next. if that next. So if you do, you just Period. I just think that's an alarm bell. How much? Red flag. How much? Like I've employed a lot of people over the years. You've employed as many or more, probably more. How much of that initial meeting with someone or conversation do you glean, yep, this person is a possibility or not a possibility? Like, can you figure it out pretty quickly? Yeah, normally get it in one. Yep. If I've got a bad feeling about someone, there's a reason for it. And if I've got a good feeling about someone, I'll just say to them there and then, I'm going to cancel all the other interviews. You've got the job because you've said the right things. You've answered those questions properly. But I always put them on a 3-month probation. Yeah. So they're not just hamming it up, or they haven't heard one of my seminars and say, oh, this is what he wants to hear. Yeah. Or something like that. Yeah. But in general, I think you've got to give people a chance. And there is good people out there. And I think we focus too much on the dickheads and don't say, well, let's just find that uncut diamond of a kid that really, really wants to work. And sometimes you get people from overseas who have not been so privileged, who are willing to work a lot harder than Australians do. And I've nurtured a couple of them along the way. They've turned into be fantastic managers.
because they've just had that whatever it takes mentality. So yeah, it's very
What
interesting.
about, so for people listening to this or watching this who are gym owners or PT studio owners, or they're in the process of building or growing some kind of fitness product, and they want someone to come and work with them, what are the skills or qualities or attributes that you would look for in someone, whether or not it's to work for you as a PA or to work on the gym floor or to manage your centre, but what do you look for in people that you would like under your banner?
Well, I guess there's a few unconditionals, as in punctual and honest and those sort of things. You don't want someone who's got a history of stealing or someone who's got a history of taking a lot of sickies and that sort of thing. But let's get past it because none of them are going to get a job. But the number one thing that I always look for is people skills.
Yeah.
Being able to have good manners and being able to hold a conversation with people from all different walks of life.
Yeah.
And having basic people skills, because if you haven't got that, you can't succeed in the gym industry.
And
it's
isn't
a people industry.
It's funny how there's, you and I are on the same page with this, and I always talk about that social awareness and emotional intelligence and communication. And your technical knowledge is great. Your an understanding of anatomy and physiology and progressive overload and writing, I get, it's great. I'm an exercise scientist, so we both know our stuff. But beyond that, if you had everything you've got from a technical point of view and I had everything I have from a science background and all that, but we couldn't communicate, we never would have had a business. And if we couldn't connect. And it seems that there's not much of an emphasis on exactly what you're talking about. People get churned out of these courses, not just Cert 3 and 4, but even churned out of, university.
Absolutely.
Well, I've over the years had hundreds of university graduates or students come to me with the intention of maybe working for me or coming in and doing some student placement, and they were so obsessed and preoccupied with all things physical and all things anatomical or scientific, to the exclusion of creating a connection with the human being, right? So they're great at anatomy and physiology and biomechanics, but they were shit with people. Like they couldn't hold a conversation.
Right, this is a big problem.
And you go, mate, it's great that you understand the Krebs cycle, but ask him how his fucking weekend was.
Yeah, and this is here's the thing. So when it comes down to that, Craig, I think people are either book smart or street smart. Street smart, I mean, you can hold a conversation, you can hustle, you can sell, you can fix, you can see something's going to break before it breaks, and you can take action, you can deal with confrontation, all those kind of things. So if I've got two people and one's really book smart but can't talk and the other one's street smart but hasn't really got a clue, I'll still take the street smart one because you can teach people how to work out and you can teach people how to pass weights and how to learn about things and you can put them through a course, but you can't take someone who's overqualified, that's a dunce and has no people skills and teach people skills. I think there's a couple of things I've learnt with that is that you can't make, when you employ someone, always stop and think, you can't give someone a personality, you can't teach personality, and you can't make someone happy. If someone's a miserable prick, there's a reason for that, and you can't, because I go off on a lot of saying that people think they're going to be happy when they get a good body, when they get the ideal job, when they got so much money in the bank, or when they got the ideal missus or husband or whatever, and they're not, and that's why there's more wealthy people in therapy than poor people, because a lot of these people, they're so focused on money and they're good at making money, but they're miserable. But they think, when I get to a certain goal, whatever that goal is, the house on the hill or the Lamborghini or the hot chick or whatever, they get there and they're still miserable. Why?
Yeah.
Because they didn't enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Why didn't they enjoy the journey? Because they're not passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
And it comes down to the three things I always talk about, which is passion, vision and action. And the most important one is passion. If someone's got passion for what they want to do, then they find a way to do it. And if they've got personality, back to what I said, you can't teach someone to be happy and you can't teach someone personality. And if someone hasn't got it, I don't want to work with them because there's nothing you can do. If they've been to a 4-year uni course or an 8-week or whatever, or they've got through school and they still don't have a personality, they've just got through life and they've turned 20, they don't have a personality, guess what? You're going to be a dull bastard for the rest of your life because you don't just develop a personality. You can't learn one.
Yeah. I think in our culture too, for some reason, people are taught that, and this is going to sound contradictory, so don't misinterpret what I'm saying, folks. Education matters, knowledge matters, skill matters. Those things really matter. But if you insert all of that into a person who can't connect or can't talk or can't relate or doesn't have any emotional intelligence, you don't have a very good exercise professional.
Correct.
And I think there's such an emphasis on, to the exclusion of other things, on all the technical stuff these days, and functional training's great and all of that. But the bottom line is, you know, when I see, I'm going to be blunt here, when I see a fat bloke who's probably eating cheeseburgers and cheesecake and drinking 30 beers, standing on a fucking wobble board, like doing, you know, unilateral shoulder press and activating his TVA or whatever, I feel like saying to the trainer, talk to him about his diet, mate. Don't worry about whether or not he can stand on a fucking... He's got to lose 30 kilos. Let's address that. You know, whereas those conversations of, mate, what did you eat on the weekend? Tell me about your relationship with food. Tell me why on the one hand you want to look awesome, but at the same time you're living at McDonald's every second day. Tell me, where is this coming from? Because I think the thing that we miss out on in our industry, or we don't acknowledge enough, is that we're not working with bodies. Like, we're working with people who live in bodies. But it seems that a lot of people are so focused on the body and so unaware of the person that they just fail to be good because of that.
I think so. And I think you've got to have a certain skill set to be able to bring out the best in people and to potentiate people, to be able to tell people a home truth when they need. I mean, you've got to know when to give someone a slap and when to give someone a hug. And people need both, you know, as a trainer. Some people just need like a little bit of gentle encouragement. Some people really need to be pushed and yelled at and snapped into it. Yeah. Why are you eating that shit, you fat fuck? Stand nude in front of the mirror and keep eating your hamburgers and see what it's doing to you. Yeah. I'll give them advice like that. So seriously. Yeah. Like, you think you can eat whatever you want, but do it nude. Have a good look at what it's doing to your body. Have a look at your thighs or your ass or your waist, or where you've got that 30 pound of fat hanging off you that's going to kill you. Keep eating your burger and your donuts. Or make a decision that you're serious about being here and you want to make some changes. Now, not many people have got the skill set to be able to just deliver that to someone in a brutal way or in a kind way, or however it has to be delivered. And back to what we're talking about, these overqualified people, or the importance of school and the importance of qualifications, I'm all for it. But if you line up, I probably went too far by saying, okay, if you've got a street smart and a book smart person, I'll take the street smart. Let's go back a step. We've got two book smart people, and one's a little bit more qualified, but the other one's got people skills and personality. I'll take that one 10 times out of 10. Yeah. In fact, I'll never take that one. If I get someone, it doesn't matter if they're the most qualified, smartest author in the world, if they can't have a conversation with someone, they're no good to me. And I think you're right. It's been overlooked, and perhaps it comes down to the people teaching the courses don't have personality for the most part themselves. I know I've done a lot of courses where you think, I know why you're a school teacher. And that's probably why I didn't succeed in school, because I felt that a lot of the teachers weren't good teachers. They were smart, but they weren't teaching such a... it's just such an incredible thing to be able to do, and not everyone's good at it. No. You know, I think we forget that our trainers are teachers at the end of the day. You're teaching lifestyle and habits, and as you said, coaching their minds and making them want to realise why they're doing what they're doing to make the changes they need to make. So once again, there's no point in throwing someone a medicine ball while they stand on a wobble board while they're eating cakes and doing things to destroy themselves. It's very complicated stuff.
And I think... you know, the reality too is that there are a lot of people who don't really have that insight. They don't really have that understanding, and nobody's been able to teach them that. So they just don't. They don't even know what they're doing wrong, you know. And a lot of people are not necessarily prepared to. You know, like for you ground it out for a long time. I ground it out for a long time. I used to get up when I first set up my first centre in 1990. Actually, when I first started PTing, I started in the fitness industry in 82 and I started PTing in 86. And I used to get up at 3 o'clock 5 days a week and train a guy at 3:30 because he had to start work at 5:30. But there's just a lot of people who go, well, that's ridiculous. I go, well, no, that's what I had to do to get clients back then. So I'd literally go to bed at 10 and get up at 3 and be at the gym at 3:30, open up and do all that stuff through the day. And I just think that, and it's not trying to sound like a hero because, but for me, there was no hardship in that. I go, well, I didn't go, will I or won't I? I went, well, this is what I need to do because I don't have a brand, I don't have skills, and it was just for me that was my apprenticeship.
Right, but it wasn't just doing the uncomfortable, it was actually embracing and hugging the uncomfortable. I'll give you an analogy. My manager and partner in the city and now partner in Frankston, Alistair White, you know Al? He competed at the weekend. He was a trainer at Brunswick like 10 years ago or something like that, and he had a client at 5 a.m. and he didn't have a licence at the time, and he was never, ever, ever late.
Wow.
And he was there every single day to train this bird at 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, remember when it came time to select a partner and a manager for the city gym, and he put his hand up, look, we've already proven that you will work. You've already proven that you're happy to live outside your comfort zone. You've already proven that you're punctual and you've got people skills and all that. And that's why we became business partners, because I saw that trait in him where I thought, this guy's hungry enough to do whatever it takes. And he's proved that for years now that he's proved me right.
Let's go back to the early days. So you've set up your first gym. When did you get serious about promoting shows? What was your first foray?
In Bendigo, so I started working at this gym, the one where I had to be a aerobics instructor, and a couple of years into it, we decided to try.
How long did you teach aerobics for?
I can't remember, like a year or something.
That's hilarious.
So it was a good stretch.
If anyone's got footage of that, I'll give you $1,000.
I'll give you 10.
If you've got footage of him doing any kind of aerobic teaching. And just as an aside, our producer, Melissa, actually teaches all that shit and has taught that. Not shit, sorry. It's just so teaches choreography. So after this, Melissa, Tony will take you in the
show you some moves.
Yeah,
my step forward.
Little grapevining.
Anyway, so what
the
happened?
Step forward.
So I got a job at this gym, and a couple of years into it, I saw an opportunity to try and buy into the business. The guy that was sort of mentoring me, the guy that owned it, I could tell he wanted to step back. I said, "Can we buy a share or something?" And me and Dad put our heads together. And he came back and said, "Why don't you just buy the whole thing?" So we did. But unfortunately, to do that, I had to get Mum and Dad to mortgage their house. Wow. We paid 3 times more than what it was worth because I thought he was a good bloke. And I paid more back then in 1985 it was, and I was 21. And more than that I'd pay for a gym now. I was just dumb and green. And anyway, but these are the lessons you have to learn. And paid way too much for it. And story goes that over the next couple of years, I got out of control. I'm a young man thinking I knew everything. I knew nothing. I developed this giant body, so I strutted around like a fuckhead. My ego got out of control. I couldn't pay the bills. I started getting a bad name around town. I pushed all the people away that really were our core members, thinking, I just want bodybuilders. It was a little country town. I needed everyone. Fernwood opened their first all-female gym across the road.
Wow.
And my opinion was, we don't need women members. The ones that go there are shit anyway, and they're all no good and whatever. And of course they had people waiting out the front saying, he doesn't even want you here, signing them up. Then the guy whose job I got, he opened up across the road. So we had a town that was big enough for 2 gyms. In the first 2 years it went from 2 to 9, and there was 3 in my street. In this little lane in Bendigo there's 3 gyms. One being this massive Fernwood, the other one being a big aerobics centre. And I started to do my balls, so I started, working at nightclubs and all this crazy stuff to pay the bills and keep the doors open, and then got sucked into that lifestyle with drugs and alcohol and all the shit that you wouldn't want to wish onto anyone. And I got to 1994 and I was kind of depressed. I owed a couple of $100,000. They were foreclosing on the gym. I hadn't made my rent. Mum and Dad were about to lose their house. And I just thought, look what I've become. I felt like a loser. I was good at bodybuilding and bashing people, but I wasn't any good at business. And I thought I was a businessman, but I wasn't at all. I was just a dickhead. And
did you have the self-awareness you have now, which is amazing and admirable? How much self-awareness did you have then? Did you go? It was
starting to come. It was starting to. I think guys grow up.
Because the problem with fuckwits is they don't know they're fuckwits.
Yeah, no, I knew when I was being a fuckwit.
Right.
I was disappointed in myself, but I couldn't find any other way out. And I knew I needed to get to Melbourne. This is why I started to answer this question the way I did, because you said, when did I start promoting? Well, I started promoting a little Mr. Bendigo and so on and so on. And in 1988, the IFPB became available. The people that ran it here for a couple of years, and they were no good and didn't have people skills once again. And they did a show, and I remember the lady threw the microphone away and said, whoever wants this can have it. Contact Paul Graham in Sydney because you're all ungrateful bastards, and stormed off.
This was at a comp?
Yeah, at a comp, yeah. Yeah, and
Wow.
and I'm just sitting there. What was I?
Did you run to the stage?
Well, I knew he was in Sydney, and I was 23,
Wow.
nearly 24, and I called him, and he said, send me a letter and tell me why you should be the state director of the IFBB. And of course, probably 10 other people did, but most of them had a vested interest. Either they had a gym in Melbourne which would cut the other gyms out, or they were involved with a certain supplement company they didn't want, or whatever. So I was the only kind of neutral one. So yeah, back then I had to like get a typewriter, type a letter, send it by surface mail, and wait for him to call. And he called on the landline and said, you need to come up to Sydney to see me. I can see you tomorrow or the next day, whatever it was. I'll pick you up at the airport. Let me know when you're arriving. And shit. And back then there was no discount airlines, and so I still remember I had to borrow the $700.
Oh.
Back then it was $700. I remember to get a return flight.
700.
Yeah, and I rocked up at the airport, and
No Tiger back then.
and he walked past me, no Virgin, nothing, Ansett and Qantas, and he walked past me. I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Graham." He said, "Yeah." He said, "He said, I'm here to meet someone." I said, "That's me." He goes, "No, no." I said, "I'm Tony Doherty." He goes, "No, you're too young. I'm meeting a much older person." And kept walking. Fuck, that didn't go too well. So
That's hilarious.
yeah, and I didn't realise he's this aloof guy. He's got this sense of humour, and but at the same time, it's his way of saying.
Oh, he was fucking with you.
He was, but at the same time, he's saying, "Well, when you send me a letter, you didn't say you're a kid. You said you're this experienced promoter."
That's
So
hilarious.
Pumped it all up.
Just
So
a bit of mayo on
got
it.
a fucking snakeskin briefcase and his long leather coat because I thought it was a bit of a gangster, you know. So off I went after him. I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Graham." He said, "Oh, this doesn't work for me." And anyway, long story short,
That was funny.
yeah. And his son Paul Jr. was born that day. He said, "Look, we've just had a medical emergency. My wife's just given birth to my son. She's in one hospital. He nearly died. He's in another hospital. So if you'll come with me in the van, we'll go and sit with him. We can talk and have our first meeting." And he actually passed away 3 weeks ago. So I always knew what date I started with them because I was there the day he was born. So it's been a really bittersweet story to tell because I think of this kid and I knew him all his life and he just passed away at 28. So I know I've been promoting with the IFBB for exactly 28 years. Anyway, that was April 1988. And so I hung in there and I started doing shows in Melbourne and I guess started to build my brand quite a bit. And time I got to 94, and this is when I was at the peak of my recklessness.
Just hold the button for 1 sec. Because I think that bit of you going to meet Paul Graham, who in the bodybuilding world at that time and still was high profile, big name, the boss. Mm-hmm. You're the kid from Bendigo trying to pretending like you know, obviously lots of potential and on your way, but like, how did you self-manage in that moment? How did you not look like you didn't know what you were doing?
Just fake it till you make it, you know. Just told him what I thought he wanted to hear. Told him I was honest and I wouldn't let him down. And he said, "I'll tell you what." He said, "I think you're too young and too crazy, too rough around the edges, but I'll let you do one show. And if you don't fuck it up, you can do another one." So I worked like hell on the first show and I didn't fuck it up. And he goes, "Oh, we can have another one." And after a year, he said, "All right, that's it. It's yours."
Because I think a lot of people who are starting a business or building a brand or even stepping into becoming a trainer feel like frauds, right? We go, "Oh, why would anyone listen to me? I'm just fucking..." Like I because I was this morbidly obese kid and you were a fat kid as well. I remember when I was working on Channel 10 and I tell this story in my stuff, I did about, I don't know, maybe 100 episodes on the morning show over 3 years. And every one of those episodes, I felt like a fraud going on because why would Australia want to listen to me talk about how to get their shit together where I'm just an insecure ex-fat kid sitting on the, you know. So that feeling of being a fraud, did that live with you
No, I had probably a different level of confidence.
Right.
I always knew I was destined to do something great and to follow this path. And I knew I'd have to take some risks and bluff my way through a few things to get to that.
Not being a fraud, I mean feeling a fraud, because you definitely weren't, and neither was I. But
it wasn't
the self-esteem was okay.
More, yeah,
good.
Yeah, and I've always really backed myself. When I make my mind up to do something, there's nothing in the world will stop me, and I have that mentality. I'm like, okay,
where's it come from?
I
Like,
know,
where? How do we fucking get that? How do we get that, Australia?
Don't know. It's something I've had since I was a kid. I've just always, if I put my mind to something, make my mind up, and people say to me, "Oh, I've got this dream." Right when I do my seminars, people say, "Oh, I've got this dream, I've got this vision, I've got this thing I want to do. How bad do you want to do it?" And my answer is always, they said, well, how bad do you need to want to do it? I said, it's got to keep you awake at night, it's got to wake you up at the morning, and it's got to absolutely take over your mind. And when you can't stop thinking about something, where you know that this will provide the passion you need to bound out of bed every single day of your life and never to have to go to work, that's for you. Find it, follow it, do it, back yourself, and don't quit. So I've never really had to stop and go, oh, should I do this or shouldn't I do it? It's like I go through a process, I guess, of pros and cons and ask myself, do I really want to do it? And I'm like, fuck, it's keeping me awake at night. I must really want to do it.
Right.
So when I make up my mind to do something, I'm just unstoppable. I just have this mentality, like I'll go into a meeting without notes. I'll go into a meeting like that with just my hustle. Just go and say, you know what, I'm not leaving Sydney until I get this position. It's not negotiable. So I knew I was going to get it. I just, you know, and of course when he says, I don't want to talk to you, I'm like, that's just a hurdle. I'm going to get over it, and he's going to talk to me no matter what. I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
And I think I said to him, well, I'm not leaving, so we better figure something out. And yeah, so no, I've never really had that feeling of anything, you know, and it's been a lot of things that I've obviously achieved with nothing, you know, from the Expos and the Arnolds and all these sort of emceeing huge shows and around the world, and this and that sort of thing. And once I commit, there's no self-doubt whatsoever. There can't be. I don't know. Just make up my mind to do
that's
something.
a gift, and that's amazing. That's amazing. It is like when I think about the kid trying to do a clean above his head, or a snatch or clean and jerk or whatever, standing with his feet side by side and then falling back and breaking his wrists, and then I think about Arnold Schwarzenegger's business partner. It's like a million light years away.
Yeah.
Did you in your wildest dreams, when you were sitting on the couch watching Arnold on TV with your old man, go, obviously you wouldn't have thought he'll be my business partner one day, but when did you start to think, and for those who don't know, Tony and Arnold are business partners in quite a few projects. When did that enter your consciousness that could be a possibility?
Well, it's funny. Mum dug up this newspaper article. It was like the first article they did on me as this young businessman in Bendigo when I was, 22 or something. And it said, what are your future goals? And I wrote, to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger. In fact, it's one of the slides I use at my seminar. So that was the first thing. So it's sort of been incremental. So when I met Arnold, I think it was 91, and it was like you could buy a VIP ticket and have a photo with him, and you get like 3 seconds with him, because I'm the guy now that pushes the people in for the photo and makes sure that they don't do selfies. And back there was no mobiles, but it was this little room where there was a guy at the door, and he'd push you in. Arnold grab you and say, how you doing? And there'd be a guy there with a Polaroid camera. He'd take your photo, and Arnold would push you, and there was a guy on the other side would grab you, this big burly guy would grab you. He'd give you a photo frame. The photographer would flick you the Polaroid, and they'd push you out the door, and it'd shut behind you.
Wow.
So you're standing in this foyer with this photo, going shake, 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 hoping the fuck it turned out, and this frame to put it in.
That's
so
hilarious.
This is the first time I met Arnold, and that photo's still up in the gym. And I thought, well, now I've met Arnold, gee, what's next? So then I planned.
What
the next
year was
stage.
that?
That was 91.
Yeah.
And then maybe 92, around then. And then, actually it was 92. And then the next stage is, I thought, well, it's good that I've met Arnold, but he hasn't got a fucking clue who I am. Like he met 500 people in that photo line that day, and he said the same thing to every one of them. You're a big guy, how you doing, and this kind of thing. So I thought, well, I'd love to get to know him one day. Imagine one day if he knew who I was, if he just knew, hey, Tony.
Yeah.
You know, so that became my next goal.
Yeah. And
then that took another 20 years, really. Seeing him around the shows, you probably had no idea who he was. But when he went global with his partner, Jim Lorimer, who I've just got back from Columbus last Thursday, Columbus, Ohio. I went to Jim's 90th birthday. What an amazing man, what a great visionary he is. I'll tell you a little story to back that up. But so I met Jim Lorimer back at that show in 1992, and I had this idea, because I was already promoting, that I'd like to do a big expo in Australia and for it to become the Arnold Classic one day. I knew that. And I went to him and said, excuse me, Mr. Lorimer, I've got one question. He said, what is it, son? You know, and Jim was in his 60s then. And he said, I said, what? He said, what is it? And I said, when do you start working on next year's show? And he said, Monday morning. And I went away and I thought, I'm not ready for that. I'm not mature enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not committed enough. I've got some growing up to do. But I know that when I realise that you've got to work for 365 days straight, and I'm ready to embrace that and do it well, I'll be ready to promote expos. So it took me about 15 years to grow up. And then at one stage I've been promoting the bodybuilding shows and then the pro shows. And obviously I moved to Melbourne in 94, back to how I got out of Bendigo and so on. And then when I started doing the Australian Pro bodybuilding in 2001, I thought I'm going to turn this into an expo one day. And I know you have to work on it all year, and I think I'm ready. And that took another 10 years before it turned into FitX. So when I started FitX, it was this giant expo. I went down and hired the Melbourne Convention Exhibition Centre with nothing. I mean, I had nothing. I didn't have the prize money. I just scrounged around to get the deposit. And
How many days was that? 3?
3 days, yeah. And we had 4 bays of the Melbourne Convention Centre. This is 6 years ago, and
so you got nothing organised. You got no one coming at this stage. No staff,
Nothing.
no sponsors.
nothing. So I
Can,
started.
can you don't have to, but how much? What was the investment for you that you needed?
I've never done a budget for anything I've ever done. So what I do, I just figure it out as I go. And I've always thought if you focus on money, you don't get any work done. So focus on the end product.
So amazing.
Yeah, I know.
It's so
It's fucking
anti-business
It
advice.
scares the shit out of people.
It's like do your accountants go, "Fuck, really?
bad,
Do you have
bad.
do you have a financial advisor?" No.
No, I've got
Thank
an
God,
accountant.
because
And
you'd
I
be
go
a
to him for
constant
advice,
logger.
like when I'm going to buy a gym or going to start a big event.
He
like
should come
this.
to you for advice.
Well, it's kind of turned the tables, you know. So I go to him and my dad and I go, look, we should open another gym, or I found this thing I want to buy, or I'm going to do this big fitness expo. I'm going to take on the big players who are backed by $1 billion American company, and they're like, so what are the facts? I go, well, it's going to cost this much to rent the hall. It's going to cost this much prize money. I guess we're going to do some advertising. So it might cost 100 grand, 200 grand to put on, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And how are you going to get that? And I'm like, well, people will buy tickets, we'll get some sponsors, and I don't know, we'll fucking figure it out. But we've got to commit.
Yeah.
And you really, when you do something, you have to be all in. And I've got a saying, you're all in or you're not in at all. So when I commit to something, as I said before, I'm all in.
Yeah.
So when we did the first FitX, yes, I had no idea how I was going to make it work. And I bullshitted everyone.
What year was that?
2011?
12?
11, yeah.
11.
So we did that with nothing, and we got about 10,000 people through. But I knew I needed to get 10,000 people through for the exhibitors to be happy.
Yeah.
So what I did, I gave out about 6,000 free tickets.
Yeah.
And it looked really packed, and everyone came with their free tickets, but I didn't make any money at all.
Yeah.
In fact, I worked for 10 months on it and didn't make a cent. Didn't even make wages. So the gym was paying my wages, and I was doing this on the side and so on.
Yeah.
And I hired an event planner and assistant, and they got paid, but I didn't. Anyway, so I thought, I'm pretty good at this now.
But
So
you
the
were
next-
but you were creating something though, right?
Yes.
You were building something.
Yeah, and I had this passion for it. And I knew that one day Arnold would want to go global when he finished with politics.
Right.
And I knew that maybe if I had the best expo in Australia, I'd be the guy he chose. So this is in the back of my mind all
Yeah,
the
right.
time. From when Jim Lorimer told me what commitment it took. 15 years later, I did the first FitX and so on.
Yeah.
So I did that one, and it was 4 bays of the Melbourne Convention Centre. So fast forward 6 years. This year, coming 2017, I've hired the whole Melbourne Exhibition Centre. And we're not Australia's biggest fitness expo. I'm now Australia's biggest expo, bigger than the car show, the boat show, the food and wine show.
Home
all of
show,
them.
caravan show.
Fuck them, all of them. So, and just quite, I still don't know quite how I'm going to pull this one off. You know, deposits, second, third deposits due, and I'm like, shit, we haven't sold that many tickets to get to this point, and our naming sponsor dropped off, and I've got to find someone else here, and it's just like this big jigsaw puzzle.
How do you? I mean, I'm not. Well, some might argue I'm not an idiot. I'm not a genius. But how do you even? Like that to me just seems so vast when you go, I'm not even going to ask, but I'd imagine it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that you need to pay for that
It's going to cost me
space.
770 grand to rent the joint. That's without my staff, my office.
How many days is that?
3.
Fuck.
Yeah.
$750,000 before you
Rent.
pay any other expenses.
Straight up.
Wow. So it's going to cost you $1 million for 3 days more?
Oh, yeah. Jesus
Really?
Christ. There's staging and lighting and staff and accommodation. I mean, I accommodate 80 athletes for 5 days.
Wow.
There's 100,000 US prize, 125,000 US prize money.
Okay, $2 million. So we're up to $2 million.
Yeah.
More than $2 million.
Yeah.
When do you? How do you even begin to go? Not only how am I going to cover that, but then on top of that, where do you start? Like where do you start?
I don't. I just
Do you have a
do
big
it.
war room with a whiteboard and just shit
but
everywhere?
We don't use it much. We've got a war room with a whiteboard, and it's just a wank.
Really?
So if I get busy, everyone's got a job and a role to play. Let's all just get busy doing what we're going to do, and dealing with stuff as it comes up, and not getting stressed by it. And
Do you have a marketing director, or do you who sells this? Who does all the selling? I know you're a great salesperson.
I do a lot of it, and I've got a guy who does all my social media and stuff, Troy, and all of our websites, and he's actually becoming really, really good at it. So he's taking over a lot of that this year.
Yeah.
But then we've expanded it because I really bit the bullet this year and I doubled the size of it. So normally I grow 20%. So this year,
50.
Let's go 100.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So what was I thinking? Who knows? But the upside of that is I've got this real passion with Arnold's Fitness Crusade, and I want to get kids off the couch, and I want to get kids involved in exercise and stop this next generation of obesity and be a forefront pioneer in that.
Yeah.
So I've developed the Arnold Kids Expo. So I've devoted 6 bays, so a third of the space, so $250,000 worth of space to the Kids Expo. And I've got Tennis Australia on board. We've got Futsal on board, who are going to have 1,500 to 2,000 kids. Tennis Australia is going to have their school program there. Today we did a self-defense for kids, for anti-bullying and that sort of thing, where kids can come and learn how not to get picked on.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other sports. We're going to approach gymnastics. We've got fencing. We're going to approach gymnastics, netball, all these different sports. If anyone's hearing this that's involved in a kid's sport, we will accept you. And I'll give you free space. Right? I'll pay for your space. You bring your equipment in. I'll give you free space. But here's the catch. They've got to have a thing called Come and Try, which means little kids at home that don't do sport have got to be able to come and try all these different sports. So the guy that does futsal will have a lane where kids that don't normally kick a soccer ball can kick a soccer ball.
Yeah, awesome.
And the guy that from the tennis has got to have some bigger bats and some bigger balls where some little unco kids can do this. And probably the greatest example of that is we brought Fencing Australia into it 2 years ago, and they were very reluctant. So we had them as a demonstration sport the first year. And they signed up more new fencers in the 2 weeks following that Arnold Classic they normally get in a year, because we put them in front of people.
Yeah.
And we got people engaged, and they were smart enough to have some rubber swords or something. They say, oh, little Craig's got great footwork, and Melissa's got fantastic reflexes or whatever. And then they brought kids into their sport, and it's been a growth surge that they've never seen before. So I want to do that across probably 30, 35 sports. So the Arnold Classic now is the biggest multi-sport festival in the world. So we've gone global.
Yeah.
We've got 6 continents with the Arnold Sports Festival. We average between 35 and 40 individual sports at each one. So bodybuilding is now only 1/40th of the whole thing. And it's our marquee sport, yes, and the biggest prize money, but we've got the world's strongest man. And we've got the powerlifting, the pro raw powerlifting. And we've got all these different sports in and around the expo, which has gone mad. So, we're expecting it could be 10 to 12,000 athletes. Now, to give you a perspective, the Olympic Games was just on, had about 9,500 athletes. We're going to have 12. In Columbus, we had 23,000 athletes this year, which is double the size in scale of the Olympics.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't get their funding, and we don't get all the elite athletes in every sport, because we want a lot of the sports to be inclusive where anyone can do it. Yes, we want the elite athletes and the world's strongest man and the pro bodybuilding and some of these ones, but some of the other sports, we just want first-timers.
Yeah.
We want people to be able to participate. So we've built this world's the biggest multi-sport festival in the world, which I'm involved with, I'm pleased and proud to say, all over the world.
Yeah.
So we've got a little bit out of control. So we start with, how do you go from getting to this stage to Arnold? So the next stage was wanting him to know who I was. So we sort of got to that when I got through doing this first FitX and everything else, and I saw he was going global. And to put that in perspective, I was just talking about Jim Lorimer. He was 50 years old, our age, when he met Arnold for the first time and decided that when Arnold retired, they'd be business partners 40 years ago. Then 28 years ago, when he was 63, 62, he developed the Arnold Classic for the first time at 62 and started.
Yeah.
But what's remarkable is when he went worldwide and global, him and Arnold sat down together and said, let's take this to Europe, South America, Australia, Africa and Asia. And we'll have one in each continent. Jim was 84.
Amazing.
He started his global expansion to turn this into the world's biggest multi-sport festival at 84. And I've just been to his 90th birthday party. He's as sharp as a tack. And
I listened to that video that you posted.
Oh, he did
so
his speech?
Amazing. And the big fella gets a pump up halfway through, I will mention. But what a 1926 he was born, and he was talking about life in 1926 and what was happening and what wasn't happening. But it's great to hear somebody, who's been around for nearly a century, sharp as a tack, and not just sharp as a tack, but wise, measured, warm,
humorous, all of it.
Yeah, amazing.
What I really enjoyed out of that, Craig, and anyone that wants to just check out my Facebook, I posted up there, or just Google Jim Lorimer's 90th birthday speech, you'll find it. But he doesn't talk about what he's seen in his lifetime. He talks about what we're going to see in our lifetime, what our kids are going to see in our lifetime. He talks about us living to 150 and life extension and bionics and robotics. Yeah. He's this 90-year-old guy that would have been in a horse and cart who's seen the invention of the cell phone and the computer and all these things, saying, you ain't seen nothing yet. Yeah. And he finishes his speech by saying, we've still got work to do. Yeah. Yeah. So when it all went global and I built this brand, I knew that there was a chance I'd get approached by Arnold. So you go from wanting to meet Arnold, I did that, and this is when I was a kid. First goal was to meet him. Second goal was from just to know who I was. And then when he started calling me Tony and invited me to do speeches, and then I started to MC shows, that was the next one. I wanted to MC an Arnold Classic, which I did in Rio for the first time. And it was like, I'd love to be friends with him. I'd love to smoke a cigar with Arnold, you know? Yeah. And, of course, when I brought him to Melbourne the first time, we hired this boat, and he wanted to go up and down the Yarra River. And we get out there and he goes, let's go outside and have a cigar. I'm like, fuck. Boom. I'm trying to hide my...
jubilation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
and
hilarious.
Now
That's great.
I've had a cigar and a drink with him in every continent and then more. You know, I've been invited to movie premieres with him, and I've been to Shanghai with him. I've been to Hong Kong with him, and obviously all the big and great cities in the world. And I've been to his office now, and you know, and he's sent me gifts and letters, and it's just amazing to look back and go, wow. Gee, be careful what you dream of.
What's he? We'll move on to. I want to go back to your story a bit, but before we leave Arnold for the minute, what's he like when no one's looking?
Same. This is probably the most endearing thing I like about Arnold. Two things, and I get asked this a lot. What's he really like? I say, okay, well, when the cameras are off, he's the same. He's funny and witty and all the rest of it, but I've never ever seen Arnold talk down to anyone, to be rude to a waiter or a waitress or a taxi driver or someone who he doesn't need to be nice to. I've seen him check into hotels, I've seen him at airports, I've seen him in restaurants, obviously I've been in Uber cars with him. We'll sit up the front with the driver and talk to him. And I think that's something we can all take, that I've been around through him and other endeavours. I've been around a lot of celebrities, and a lot of them, when the camera goes off, they're just pricks. They talk. I hate people that talk down to waiters and waitresses, people that are on minimum wages doing their bit to eat and keep a roof over their head, and then some knob wants to talk down to them like they're a piece of shit. And I've never seen Arnold ever lower himself to that, ever. Not even get cross with him, never. And the other thing, the other trait he's got, which I just think we can all learn from, he's the most curious person I've ever met. So if he met you, he'd pick your brain and he'd remember all of it. Wow. And he'd say, how did you get into this and why? And how did you become this master coach of people of their mind? And he'd actually take something from it. He'd remember it. He'd remember your name. He'd remember your story. You'd see him a couple of years later and say, how the seminar's going. And it's amazing. I've seen him do it time and time again, whether it's with an Uber driver or a restaurant owner. And I could waffle on forever. But he's everything you hope your idol would be. Let's say that.
So I want to talk a little bit about growing a brand and growing a business, and just some advice from you to our listeners and viewers in terms of, do you think the most important thing, or it might be neither of these, might be something else, but is it that there's actually a need for that in the marketplace? Because it maybe something's not being met or fulfilled in the marketplace, or that they're just driven and passionate and absolutely full on about it, or a bit of both, or is it something else? Like, what if I'm going to be or create some new brand or business or product or service, what has to be in place? Like what needs to be a non-negotiable?
I think in creating the brand, before we talk about the need for the brand, I think in creating the brand, you need to know what you are and who you are as a brand. Right. More than anything else. And I think where I see people go wrong is that they come up with what they think is going to be a good brand, and then they become fucking reactive to every single person that has a comment about it. Oh, right. You've got a great gym, Craig, but you need to do aerobic classes because my sister wants to be an aerobics instructor, or my new missus can take classes. Says, I want to be a bodybuilding gym, but okay, we'll open up that room, put in classes. And then the next one says, we need child minding. Okay, we'll do that. And someone else goes, what about spin? I was never going to do that, but fuck, they're cheap, and I can buy 20 of those bikes cheaper than treadmills, boom. Yeah. And they start being fucking reactive to every, I nearly said the C word, to every person that speaks to them. And you've got to be really, really strong and resilient as a brand and know what the hell you are to start with.
Because you've done a lot of things that, not me, but business advisors would say are quite contrary. Like, yes. Because you've gone, we're not doing that. We're you know, where bodybuilding and you do a few other things, but
No, it's not even bodybuilding. What our brand is gym, cardio, boxing, pro shop.
right,
That's it.
yeah,
Nothing more, nothing less. Gym for everyone. And one of our slogans is fitness for everybody. Not everybody, every body.
Yeah.
For disabled people, for mentally impaired people, for insomniacs, for fuckwits, for everyone. Right? Well, the fuckwit one, I throw them out pretty quick. But what I'm getting about that is...
but there are
busted
harmless
people.
fuckwits and
Yeah, well,
dangerous
that's it.
fuckwits.
Right, so harmless ones. So a lot of people, when I went 24 hours, and here's another one, everyone said, it's going to fail, you can't do it. My accountant, my bank manager, all the long-suffering people that give me advice all said, well, 24-hour gym, who's going to come between midnight and 6? I said, well, you're missing the fucking point.
Yeah,
The point is you can get your cleaning done during those hours. The point is somebody might need to train. And the point you're all missing is if people are going to go and look at two gyms side by side and say, that one's 24 hours, that one's not, I'll join that one just because I can if I want to. I want to be able to go to the gym in the middle of the night because I'm starting work early or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether they do or not. It matters whether they join.
yeah,
So knowing that and sticking with it and saying, okay. And then people said, well, you wouldn't open Christmas Day, would you? Who's going to train on Christmas Day? I said, fuck, what about all the lonely people in the world? What about the people who've got no family or everyone hates their guts or they're living in a different town, they've come down here with a contract with an oil company or a casino or something.
Yeah.
There's no one here. It's the loneliest day of the year.
Yeah.
So on Christmas Day, let's fire up. Let's give the staff a big bonus for working so I don't have to because I've got kids.
Yeah.
Or let's do this. Let's put streamers out. Let's put some chocolates on the counter and put some beer in the fridge.
Yeah.
And say, come down here Christmas Day. If you've got nowhere to go, come and hang out with us. We'll be up. We're the only business open. Everyone said, but you can't. There's regulations. I said, no, this is not fuck. I pay the rent. We're opening.
Yeah.
Boxing Day, Christmas Day, Good Friday, all of them. I haven't shut the doors in 18 years. In fact, the day I opened, I threw my keys away.
Yeah.
I said, how serious are you?
I
said,
love that
fucking
story.
this serious. I threw the keys away. And when I got new doors
So you were
put
telling
on-
me you were standing out the front of the gym. Is this, correct me if I'm wrong, you just opened, like we're opening from now?
Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, and I had all the staff there helping me prepare to get the building ready, but we'd been working for 2 weeks solid with nothing. And they all went home, said, see you at 6, and no one showed up.
So
One of the girls had tied a ribbon around the door and left some scissors.
Yeah.
So I felt the need to have a ceremony. So I had one on my own. I said, I'd like to declare this fucking completely open. We're never, ever going to close. And I cut the ribbon, and I threw the keys as far as I could into Berkeley Square car park, actually. And I've never locked the door since. And when we got new doors put on, the guy gave me the keys. I said, you can go fuck yourself. He said, well, what's wrong with you? I don't want the keys.
Yeah.
He goes, but what if? I said, there's no what if. We don't shut. There's no need for keys, ever.
Yeah.
And that was like that no plan B mentality. There is no plan B.
Yeah.
Make it work.
Yeah.
So back to the idea of a brand as knowing what the hell you are and not being reactive and trying to be everything everyone wants, because you can't be everything everyone wants. You've got to know who and what your brand is, and then you've got to stick to your knitting.
Yeah.
So that's been our strength.
Yeah.
And then to build your brand so it becomes popular and something that everybody wants. So instead of selling a workout, we sell an experience.
Yeah.
So we've built this place, particularly Brunswick in the city, and the other ones are offshoots of it, but particularly Brunswick Gym, it's become this iconic destination point where anyone in fitness in Australia goes, if you go to Melbourne, you've got to go train at Doherty's.
Yeah.
And then they buy 10 T-shirts for their mates. Oh, while you're there, can you get me one of them cool T-shirts? Because all the cool people wear them.
Yeah.
So I've had the Chicago Bulls, I've had the WWE wrestlers, I've had every bodybuilder and fitness chick and hot model in the world wearing our brand.
Yeah.
And of course, people want to be associated with successful people that wear brands. So we've got that covered.
Yeah.
And Ronnie Coleman's worn them in his videos, and Jay Cutler's worn them in his videos, and Phil Heath's worn them on national television in America where 100 million people have seen our brand.
Amazing.
It's crazy. So in making the brand popular and putting it on the right people, but then sticking to what you are and what you do, I think is the most important thing. And so when you said originally, is there... do you need to know that there's a room in the market for your brand? I think we've seen some really successful brands who've just created a need in the market through hype and through popularity have created a need where there never was one before. So would the gym industry have been the same without me doing what I've done? Probably. But would there have been this gym that's a home away from home, that's a fitness for everybody, that's a place for all the dysfunctional people to go in the middle of the night, people that are lonely and lost, and insomniacs and students and taxi drivers and strippers and bouncers and all these people that... So I've always said, we'll take the 5% of people that no one else wants.
Yeah.
And in any great city in the world, that's a lot of fucking people
that
don't fit into Fitness First. They don't fit into whatever the latest brand, Snap or whatever. They just, they can go there, but they're never really going to be at home.
Yeah.
So I built this thing for all the misfits, if you like.
That's true.
And what happened is that all the other people followed. And for example, in our city gym, so we've got this iconic gym right in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
We've got Virgin Active, we've got South Pacific, we've got Fitness First all around us.
Yeah.
And our biggest demographic of people in there is legal people,
Yeah.
lawyers and judges and magistrates and legal secretaries. Why? Because they don't want to be around those other fuckwits during their lunch hour or before work. They're like, oh, God, I've got to put up with those suit people all day in the office. I want to be around real people.
Yeah.
So they come down to our gym to escape and to have an experience that they can't get anywhere else. So if I have to sum our brand up, it's all about the experience. Yes, I've got the best equipment. Yes, I've got the most cool pictures and the best people training there, but it's not that. It's the fact that when you go there, you get lost in all the history and all the pictures and all the atmosphere and all that, and you might take a selfie with someone famous, or you might not, or you might see someone you follow on Instagram, or all these sort of things. So we stay ahead of the trends with all that stuff.
Yeah.
We've made our brand really, really popular.
Yeah.
And I think whether they're ready for it or not, I've never stopped and thought about it. I've just thought, build the brand, they will come.
What do people get wrong about Tony Doherty? What are the misconceptions about?
That's probably something you'd have to ask someone else.
About
I don't focus on it a whole lot. I guess when I hear people that are critical of me or talk behind my back or whatever.
Not even critical, but just get wrong?
Well,
like people, I'll open the comments. People say to me, not all the time, but Tony and I, he's like a badass, isn't he? I go, well, in a good way. Like, what's he like though? I go, and I'm not pissing in your pocket. I go, he's really smart. He's really smart. He's really good at business, and he's really good with people. And they're like, but isn't he like that? Like, it's funny how you get, and the same with me. I get pigeonholed as the personal training guru. I go, well, I haven't been that for a while. I maybe never was that. Or the bloke on SEN, or the, and I'm not saying in a bad way. It's just that people
that opens the conversation.
Yeah, people, they just put you in that pigeonhole. They go, oh, that's you. But when they find out that you're actually, like, there's so many pieces to the Tony jigsaw, not just this one thing.
Well, I guess that's a mistake people make, and I actually use that. I've learned to use that to my advantage, that people take one look at me, and I guess they think I'm a thug or I'm a badass or whatever because of the way I look, and I'm big and I've got tattoos and I look like a bad motherfucker. People, and they think, oh, well, that's it. And they don't take the time to get to know me, or they underestimate me. And normally when I go into a meeting or into a situation where people are so narrow-minded that they underestimate my brain, then I use that to my advantage.
Yeah.
I play the dumb bugger and just go, oh, and then, get what I want. So I guess that's probably the biggest perception, is to say, well, don't judge a book by its cover, get to know the person. And I guess a lot of people probably, I think, find I can look intimidating, and then they're either afraid or reluctant to approach me. And I'm actually one of the most approachable people that you'd ever meet. I've got time for everyone.
That's true.
And I guess that could be a perception. I've never stopped to worry too much about people, what they think, or how they pitch on, because at the end of the day, you can't make people like you, and you can't control what people think. And if someone really doesn't like you and you try and be a good bloke and show them what a good bloke you are, they might fucking hate you anyway. It's not in your control.
We end up being a people pleaser then, don't you? And and you compromise yourself.
No, and I'm really, really blunt with people, and I tell people the truth, and as you do, like sometimes an uncomfortable truth. I'll tell a fat person they've got to stop eating and kill themselves, or I'll tell a person without confidence they've just got to get out of their shell, or I'll tell someone that's a smart ass that they need to really, really have
pull
a good
their
hard
head
look
in.
at themselves, and all that sort of stuff. So I've never been a people pleaser. I've never reacted or done what people want. I've never followed the traditional business advice and that sort of thing. And to be honest, I don't really stop and think about it, because I'm always so busy trying to achieve what I do by putting myself in the discomfort zone that I don't really have time to focus on what people say or do or think. I guess the only times is when it's affected my family, or when people, would look at people in my family differently or treat my kids differently. Yeah. Particularly when I've had bad media, or there's been there's an incident where there's a shooting at the front of the gym, and everyone thought, oh, Tony's involved with all that stuff. He's a bad fucker and all that. And then the Herald Sun did a 2-page article where they just tried to paint me as the worst person on earth, Mr. Big and all this sort of thing. And that didn't hurt me at all. I didn't give a fuck. I'm right. In fact, they called me and said, "Right, whatever you like. If you get it wrong, I'll sue you." And don't think I don't have lawyers. I know you have. I've got better ones.
Yeah.
But if you write what you write and I can't control that, then so be it. And it didn't affect me at all. But I know it affected people around me, my parents and my family. And I hate that sort of thing because I can't control it.
Yeah.
But short of that, and that's all past and people have worked out on I think the Arnold things raised my profile enormously. I think, working at the Carlton Footy Club, getting on TV, doing the Arnold stuff. People were like, we can't be a mug. I mean, when I went into business with Arnold, I know that he did his homework on me. I know that he would have put a team of investigators or people who at least studied what was true and what wasn't. And, and I think that says to people, well, if Arnold's got him as a business partner, he can't be that bad. I mean, he was just coming out of politics at the time and he's known to be a great judge of character. So, I don't know, Craig. I think you sort of summed it up. Probably people think I'm worse than what I am. But that can be good too.
Well, there's also a lot of people who are in the other camp, including me, who kind of respect you for what you're doing and want to learn. I mean, the whole point of this podcast is really that the rest of us can learn from people like you that are doing good stuff, that have done amazing stuff. What I love about your story is nobody taught you to do this shit. That you're the best teacher because you figured it out. Like your classroom was the world. Every lesson was just another day, and I'm not trying to be too cliche, but the thing is that you've learnt by doing, and I think that
and learn by failing. That's what I think people forget, and they're so scared of failure and so scared of screwing up that they don't do anything.
What about leave the house? The next 1 to 5 years? Do you do anything vaguely traditional in that sense? In that, do you go? Do you probably
follow my Snapchat or something? I actually put a snap up about this yesterday.
No, I don't. I don't even know how the fuck to do Snapchat.
Oh, I love it. So follow me on Snapchat if you're listening. Tony Doherty Oz. That's OZ. Tony Doherty Oz, all one word. Right. So it's like you do these little 10-second videos. So I did this one yesterday, and it was like, hey, all the great business coaches and gurus tell you you've got to have a 5-year plan. Well, fuck your 5-year plan. How about a 5-minute plan? How about a 5-hour plan? What can you do in the next 5 minutes to improve your life? And what can you do in the next 5 hours that you've been putting off and hiding from? What is it you're hiding from? What's stopping you from being great? So in the next 5 hours, how about you do everything you can and then fucking repeat? Repeat every 5 minutes, repeat every 5 hours, repeat every 5 days. Don't repeat every 5 fucking years. Who knows? The world could blow up in the next 5 years. And people are so locked into these 5-year plans. If I don't do that, I fail. Well, fucking things change and life changes. And Jesus Christ, I've had stuff happen the last year I never would have dreamt of. Imagine if I had a 5-year plan and I
just had a great idea that you actually came up with. You definitely. I'm not even being funny. I'm not even being funny. You need to write a book called "Fuck Your 5-Year Plan."
Yeah, all right. I can do that. I could rave
Fuck
on
your
this.
That's been given birth. The genesis of that book. You write it. I'll help you because I've got some experience. Fuck your 5-year plan because that's so contrary. Look at Melissa laughing her ass off.
She's probably got a 5-year plan.
She's destroyed it. She. You know what's funny? And no one knows Melissa, but I'll tell you a little bit about Melissa only because the most ADD organised box ticking, T crossing, I dotting, OCD. What did I say? ADD. You've bit that too. OCD. Yeah. Fuck You're like fuck it. You're freestyle, aren't you?
I've learned to live in the moment. A lot of things have happened in my life.
That is so funny.
A lot of adversity I've been through has taught me one thing: fucking live in the moment. There may be no tomorrow. Who knows what's going on? I've seen some horrendous stuff, and I've seen some great stuff, but it all says the same thing to me. You know what? What about right now? And more and more and more. And it was funny. You said to me the other day. You said, "Jesus, Tony, I'm watching you, and you've been going on this level, and now you're sort of going like this."
Yeah.
And the big switch for me is learning to live in the moment and take every opportunity that comes my way and not to overthink shit and just go, you know what, I'm here for a reason. Let's make it work. What can I do in the next 5 minutes? And if I'm being unproductive, I say that to myself. I say, come on, what can you do in the next 5 minutes? What can you do in the next 5 hours? And it's become this real thing. So I just posted about it yesterday.
That's hilarious. I'll get a little bit psych for a moment, or the mind stuff, but there's this, they talk about obviously in, assessing intelligence and all those things. They talk about IQ, intelligence quotient, and they talk about EQ, emotional quotient, or EI, emotional intelligence. So they talk about another thing lately which has always been around. They've just given it a label, which is AQ, which is adaptability quotient, right? Your AQ, your ability to adapt is through the roof because, and that just means being able to just deal with whatever. Whereas the dichotomy is, or the challenge is for a lot of people, they want to be successful in life, in business, in love, in health, in sport. They want to be successful, but they don't want to get uncomfortable. And it's like, well, it's one or the other, brother.
Yeah, and a fear of failure. You know,
and
like
that's
so worried about fucking up or looking stupid, they don't do anything.
What's the biggest fuck up that you've gone through that's also been probably the biggest lesson?
There's no one thing. There's just been too many of them. Probably being a cocky young idiot and buying a gym and putting my family's home at risk and nearly fucking it up. But I got through that and it made me what I am. So I don't have any regrets. There's not much I would do differently. And sometimes when you're going through some adversity or some shit, I wish I hadn't put myself in this particular uncomfortable zone. Yeah. But then when you get through it, you go, you know what? I learned shit that I couldn't learn any other way. So it's learning to adapt. It's learning to think on your feet. And it's learning to live in the moment no matter what. And it's a funny thing because I think that I've always said this thing that if you're just sort of so scared to fail and so scared of looking, so you'll just never ever do anything. So you've just got to sometimes bite it and work it out as you go. And in my seminars, it's like sometimes I create these challenges which are almost insurmountable and impossible to do. So I do really big ones. And people say, how the fuck are you going to do that? And I say, I don't know. It's like a mountain. It's like I'm going up this really steep mountain. I don't know. I know you can get to the top. I just don't know how. But I will figure it out. Yeah. And I might go up a couple of times and fall down, but I'll find another path until I get to the top. And nothing in the world's going to stop me because I have to get there. And it's having that, I think that mentality of saying, well, there will be obstacles and there will be failures and there will be difficulties, but it can't stop you doing what you need to do. You've just got to do it, and not overthink it and not worry about what anyone else thinks and just be strong, just be really fucking brave.
I think one of the biggest challenges for a lot of people in this space is that they are addicted to certainty. They need everything to be predictable. I don't want any fucking surprises, comfortable, and I don't want to deal with uncertainty because to them that's fear. But you go, but everything's uncertain. Like everything, life, the world, politics, the economy, relationships, health, everything's in a constant state of flux, change, transition. And if you need to be comfortable, you need everything to be the same, well, you ain't growing, you ain't learning, you ain't becoming a superstar at anything.
It's a funny thing. When I've done my Relentless Momentum seminars, probably the best question anyone's ever asked me is, why are you the way you are? What the fuck? People look at me and go, why are you always so positive? Why are you always so up? Why do you always believe in yourself like you do and take these stupid risks and get out of your comfort? All the stuff we've just talked about. And I normally answer it by turning the lights down, saying this get really dark now. I think you've seen me do this. And I say to people, you're all dying. Every single person listening to this, every single person in the room, every single person in the theatre is dying. You're on your way. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. And one day, this is a little dark, but you're all going to be on your deathbed. And I don't know how or why I know this, but I do. I know that the worst feeling would be to lie there and just know that you didn't fucking try and you didn't have any balls and you wasted your fucking life by not taking any risk, and you lie there and you have regret. And I've known since I was a little kid that I will not be that person. When I get to that day, I'm just going to go, wow. What a fucking ride. I could not have packed more into it if I tried. I try not to sleep. I hate it. I hate the fact that I have to sleep. If I could take a pill tomorrow and be the first person to never sleep again, I'd take it because I love living so much.
It's quite good for you, sleep, right? Yeah, it's overrated.
It is. And as Arnold said, you only need 5 hours. If you can't deal with that, sleep faster. And I love it. So I've developed this thing, which is a hybrid of his advice and mine, which is dream bigger, sleep faster, and work fucking harder. People are scared of working hard. They think, but isn't there an easier way of doing things? Well, then you're in the wrong field. Or you've got to have these three things: this passion, vision, and action. And I just know that I don't want me or anyone that I love to get to the end of the road and say, "Ooh, whoops, I didn't try hard. I didn't take that risk. I was that weak prick that watched everyone else succeed." And it's you either get busy living your own dream or paying for someone else's.
Mate, I erroneously assumed that we'd get through all we needed to get through in an hour or so. Melissa,
Still
how
on
long
question one.
have we been going? An hour 15. So let's wind it up and let's do another one at some stage. But I really appreciate you being here. So our audience is people who are in fitness, around fitness, business owners, employees in the fitness space, Group X teachers, trainers, bodybuilders, PT studio owners, gym owners, and people looking to get into the industry. If you could give them one or two or three pieces of advice to become their best self or build their best brand or build their best business or explore their potential, what would you want to tell anyone who's listening or watching?
I think pretty much everything we've been going through is to get out of your comfort zone, to take some risks, to know who and what you are and where you want to go. Because, some people are really, really content to build a studio and have 100 members and be really good with those members, and that's their version of success. And I appreciate that. And I'm saying, well, that if you're in your zone, you're happy, and you're going to die happy, well, good.
That's what you should be doing.
That's what you should be doing. You found your niche. I think it's that. It's just like I say to young people, and I say to my kids, find out what you're passionate about. Don't worry about money, qualification, or anything else. Find out what really, really makes you tick and work out a way to make a living out of that. And you'll never work a day in your life. And I think there's just so many people who get caught into the security of that comfort zone of having to have job security, having to have, all that stuff. And they don't ever do what they really wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just think life's so short. Figure it out. Work out what makes you tick and go do it. There's a way. There's like every great person, I guess, meeting some of the successful, actors and sports people and elite athletes and Olympians and so on that I've met, all of them have got this one thing in common. In fact, I'm going to do a seminar called The Mindset of a Champion, which I'm writing at the moment.
Great.
Because I've just met some incredible people and what makes them different. And you know what? None of us are different. They've just had the courage to say, you know what? I've decided that I'm going to take my life in this direction because that's what's going to make me tick. That's what's going to make me happy. I just think that great advice is figure it out. Make sure it is for you. Because if it's not, you're going to be a miserable prick and you're not going to be good at what you do.
When's that going to be happening, those seminars?
I was going to do the Relentless Momentum number 2 because when I did the first one, I'd never met Arnold or done the Arnold Classics or anything. So I'm ready to roll out the next stage of that. And I was hoping to do them all this year, but it's looking less than likely because of all the travel I've had. I was telling you at the weekend, I think I've just had my 12th or 13th international trip this year, and it hasn't stopped. But I'll probably do a couple of Relentlesses, probably Melbourne and Sydney in December. Yeah. And then the Mindset of a Champion will probably be more like January or February. But I'll put it all on the social media and market. But that one I want to do something really different that's never been done before. Once again, I'm going to try and do this thing that's never been done before that everyone thinks is crazy. So you can just imagine a stage set and a spotlight, and it's almost like a play of video, sound, light, music, muscle, and vision and passion and action to impart onto people some stuff I've learnt from some of the greatest minds in the world. Yeah, awesome. If people want to, for those of you who don't know, Tony does corporate speaking, consulting, high-level consulting. If people want you to work with their company or their organisation, whether or not that's to come and do a workshop or a presentation or to do some kind of consulting, what's the best way to get in touch? Probably through email, which is just tony@arnoldclassic.com.au, or just hit me through. Look, I've really embraced all this social media, so you can find me on Instagram or Snapchat, which is Tony Doherty Oz, or on Facebook, it's just Tony Doherty, and shoot me a direct message. I respond to everything, every email, every direct message, every single thing I do respond to. Some of the responses a little blunt, but you all get an answer. So you get some words. No guarantee what those words will be or how they'll make you feel. And people want to follow you in social media. Tony Doherty on Facebook, and then Tony Doherty Oz on Instagram or Snapchat. And the Snapchat I've really, really embraced because I can put up these daily clips. It's amazing the reach that it has. I was just at this Arnold Classic in Barcelona, and I had about 30, 40 people come up and take pictures with me. I'm like, how do you know me? Snapchat. And there was so many people from France. I don't know why. I'm from France. Big in France. Every word you say, and you changed my life, and I do this and I do that. And I had a really nice message the other day. This kid, I wrote this thing a few months ago. It was, those words, dream bigger, sleep faster, work fucking harder. And I said this thing about, if you want to go forward in life, how about you be the first one to get there in the morning, the last one to leave at night and do all the shit no one else wants to do.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to get you a promotion. That's going to take you to the top in anything you do. Show your bosses, get there early, stay late, do the shit no one wants to do. This guy just wrote to me the other day, Rob, his name was, he goes, hey, thanks for that advice. I just got the Apprentice of the Year.
Wow.
For Victoria, Australia, because of your words.
Yeah, amazing.
And, you know this yourself, and I've seen you post how overwhelming it is that people like us can actually affect people's life to the degree where you can change someone's direction or reassure them that they're on the right path. And the reach, I call it Real Talk, and I do some shit every morning on Snapchat, and there's thousands of people are watching it and following it, and it's changing lives. I'm like, what a great medium.
Yeah.
It takes nothing,
Yeah.
For me to do 6 10-second clips is 1 minute.
Yeah.
I normally do it just after breakfast or while I'm driving. Never when I'm driving, but when I'm parking the car.
Amazing.
Perhaps, this sort of thing.
Make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give.
Bam.
Tony Doherty, thanks,
Next
man.
time. Thanks.